Good evening. I ain't doing an intro today. The tune will be its own intro. Take it away.
Say good my girl, where you a position. Style where you use my girl. Look where you do the way you so good, you make him spend a couple million. Keys to the villa and keys to the beamer van. Me so me slip up, but not in front of you. You make bad man papa run. You make the Jesus on the baker take the gun. Right now the ayahs fuck you want some from you.
There we go. We all know what tune that is referencing. It is Badadan, of course. Absolute pounder of a song. So let's have a listen from the beginning, shall we? Let's see what's going on.
One spliff, couple guineas, y'all have the price me up, coffee the winnings. Me not broke, down long limb swinging. Roll around, in every inning. You make me summer stiff up, but not in front of you. You make bad man papa run. You make the Jesus on the baker take the gun. Right now the ayahs fuck you want some from you. Oh, dream and a smoke day. Y'all have no ticket, me hungry. She know what I'm on the board, I'm say good my girl, where you a position. Style where you use my girl. Look where you do the way you so good, you make him spend a couple million. Keys to the villa and keys to the beamer van. Me so me stiff up, but not in front of you. You make bad man papa run. You make the Jesus on the baker take the gun. Right now the ayahs fuck you want some from you.
Lovely. Absolutely love it. So I did a couple of incarnations of this song, and I started out with the vocal being Flow Down, Lil Baby and Skrillex's Pepper. It didn't actually work, but in the intro there was this vocal that sounded sort of fluty and had a real Chasing Status vibe to it, so I thought I'd definitely keep that in. Lovely. Just got a bit of a filter on there, OTT, echo, reverb. And then there was this sort of eagle squawk thing in there as well. Really nice ambiance in that, so I kept them both in. Lovely. And this vocal is Ward 21, OG Kush. I spent a long time looking for a vocal that would be suitable for this kind of thing. And this was like perfect, really. The deep voice, the rhythms are great. And there's a different person singing in the pre as well. So it gave that a Badadan feel because there's a few of them singing on that.
One spliff, couple guineas, y'all have the price me up, coffee the winnings.
And on that vocal, there's just I've just taken out some of the low end there. Got an echo on the limiter and a reverb as well. And then taking some more of those lows out because the reverb was really giving lots of low end.
One spliff, couple guineas, y'all have the price me up, coffee the winnings.
And a Reese is we're in A sharp minor, so we're just hitting a A sharp. Then down to the F, then the F sharp. And right up until that drop comes in, we're doing that over and over again. And in Badadan, they had a little rim shot and a ride in the intro with a lot of reverb on it. And that's much louder, and I've sort of automated it throughout the song, so it's quite loud in the intro. And then I sort of changed the volume of the drum room as it goes on. Because in the drop, you don't want the reverb to be too loud. Because otherwise it starts eating up a lot of space.
One spliff.
And that Reese is a couple of harmonic morph oscillators. And the fine tune's on 30, so it creates a real wobble in the sound. So without those fine tunes. And then with the fine tunes, creates so much movement, because even when you're playing different notes, the rate at which both of those waveforms are overlapping, so the rhythm of the movement changes when you're playing different notes. So it helps keep everything feeling less static. So these chords that are coming in, it's pretty simple. There's a triangle wave and a saw, and the saw is 4 semitones up. So without that 4 semitones, and with, so you're playing the major third on every single one of those notes. So we're doing the exact same MIDI pattern and notes as the Reese. So that's playing a A sharp major, F major, and a F sharp major. A lot of the character that comes from the sound is from the filter and from the distortion. So without the filter, with the filter. So this LFO is just opening up the cutoff every time the MIDI is being triggered. And I've done the same with the levels of each oscillator as well. And really important is the legato and the portamento here slides into the next note. Gives it that glide in. And then distortion just really gives that crunch. And then, yeah, just a few other bits on there just to add to the character a little bit. And then when we come into this next section, I've got another one doing a similar thing. So just with waves going on here. It's got the 4088 and the saw wave there. And the unison I've taken up as well. So before it was just one unison. And on this next one, I've upped to unison. So it really widens the sound. Made a bit of a detune. So it really opens it up in the stereo field. And I'm doing exactly the same. It's pretty much the same patch, but I've just changed the oscillators and the unison. All the same here as well. And then I've got an erosion on that just to really crunch it up. And then in the build, I've got a clap build up. So I've got 2 claps going on in that build. One that's a bit lower and a bit more wide. I've just taken a bit of the sustain out of that. And then one a bit more down the middle, a bit more snappy. They just complement each other well. Just really fills it out when you've got both of them in.
Bad man, baba, you make me Jesus what they make a take me gun. Right now me high as fuck, you want some from you.
And as we go into the build, we've just got the kick going. It's starting to come in on the 4-to-floor pattern just to increase the energy of it.
Fuck, you want some from
It just helps that energy really build. And I'm just opening the filter up a little bit on that.
Good my girl, but you a position style where you use my girl. Look.
And then into the drop, I've got a noisier break going on there.
Say good my girl, but you a.
And so the drums going into the drop is just this one sort of turnaround, reverse crash, and then the snares hitting in there. Really helps build that tension and know that you're going into the drop.
Say good my girl, but you a position style where you use my girl. Look where you do the way.
The drums in the drop. Very basic drum and bass pattern. I've got one snare and a clap just laid on top of each other. Just again helps a punch a little bit more. And then with the hats, there's a few going on. It's a pretty straight rhythm. Just got a closed hat on there. Slightly panned. And then we got another one. That one's just a little bit more digital sounding. I did notice in Badadan there's the hats sound really, really live. It sounds really good. So I tried to emulate that with a couple of accents in the hats. We've got one here. At the end of the phrase, we've got an actual live hat there. And then we've got this really crunchy top hat. That really gives it a lot of energy. So without that.
Position, style when you use my girl. Look when you do the way you're so good.
And with.
Position, style when you use my girl. Look when you do the way you're so good.
And this last one, we've got a ride doing the same thing. That has a quite a live feel to it. So it helps having the contrast of the quite electronic sounding drums here at the top, and then peppered in is the quite live sounding tops as well. In the middle of each phrase, I've just got a little skip going on that just help kick the rhythm along a little bit. And I noticed in Badadan sort of sounded like a drum, but it was pitched. And it's quite a lazy hit, so it's not on the grid here. It sort of just hits behind. And so I've got this hitting one note, and then this next one hits lower. That sort of lazy rhythm really helps it feel a little bit less straight and on the grid. And in Badadan they had a little section where the hat sort of goes double the time into the next section where all the bass comes out. So I did the same thing. At first I had it quite straight and the rhythm didn't sort of feel right. So every other hat is slightly off grid. And then the velocity I've taken down a little bit as well. So it just gives it a little bit more of a human feel. And a bit of a shuffle to it. So if it was all on grid and all the velocities were the same, it'd sound like this. It sort of takes out the humanness of it a little bit, so this just gives it a nice little skip. And then I've just got a reverse crash and a gunshot. That just helps give something different in terms of sound and the rhythm as well. And in this second section, I've got this top loop, which is just doing. It's got a little bit of a different percussion feel to it. So it goes from fairly straight in the first half, and then skips a little bit more in the second. So it just helps pick up that energy in the second half. And so with the bass, I've got three main parts. So I've got a sub. I noticed to get that sort of real dark feel in the drop, it's easier to create that darker melodic feel when two notes are just a semitone apart. So I decided to go with just F and F sharp throughout the drop. So I've got that going right down the middle, so that's mono. So it's just a sine third, and then a arp white, and then the distortion is doing a lot of the work as well. So that's without distortion and with. I do that a lot with these kind of basses in drum and bass. It really adds so much character to your bass. Without the white noise, So it just helps add something different. So in Badadan, I noticed that the bass that wasn't the sub was quite wide in the stereo field. And I wasn't sure exactly how they did it. They might have panned the oscillators in Serum. But the way I found it to work best was to do like a Haas effects with echo. So it's up 100%, and then we've got just slightly different times on there. So without that. So it helps bring that width and separate from that sub as well. And I've taken the lows out. So the sub is doing all the lows in the centre of the stereo field, and then these two basses are wider further up the frequency range. With this first top bass, 2 Monster 8s, 1 unison, again it's really, really simple, bright white, and then this LFO is, you can see, is affecting all of these parameters here, and it just helps give that whom sound to it. If that wasn't there, it would be a lot more plucky. It just helps take the attack out a little bit and give it a sweep up into the sound. And then same again, the filter and the distortion are doing so much of the work here. And with. And then distortion. So you can hear it's quite a weak sounding sound without the distortion. And you stick that distortion on, it totally changes the sound. And then I've got a few little bits on here just to add to the character a little bit more. And we're doing a very similar thing with this mid bass. So we've got 2 squares there, and the same thing with the LFO. Filter's doing a very similar thing. And again, the distortion is doing so much of this work. So without the distortion, and with, really gives it a lot of crunch. So all of those together. It's got a bit of a reverb on there as well, and the same on that top bass. And then in between, I've got these little bass flicks. So they really help carry the energy of the song. Again, very simple. Same thing again. Distortion and the filter are doing so much. So 2 oscillators. Got 1 9 semitones up and 1 3 octaves down. A square and a saw. So similar sort of thing. It's affecting, this LFO is affecting a lot of these parameters. So without the filter and without the distortion, and then with the filter, and then distortion, that really brings it to life. Makes such a massive difference. And same thing again, I tend to just play around with hyperdimension and phases and reverbs and compression and stuff. A lot of the time, once you've got the filter and distortion right, you're sort of 90% the way there. And then everything else here, just play around with. And a very similar thing on this second one. Similar LFO, affecting these parameters again. And again, distortion is really, really crunching it up. So that's what gives all of those sounds so much character. Instead of doing 2 of the same in both of these drops, I thought I'd switch up this last one here. So it's just a little bit of a different sound, but very similar principle. This one, I think this is a patch that I found. Yeah, same thing. See, without distortion, it's such a different sound. You got the drive and the mix 100%. So all those basses together. It's good not to have these bass fills overlapping on this main bass. So you don't really want 2 things playing at the same time, unless it's designed in that way, like these 2. Ideally, you'd want a bit of separation, so you don't have different types of sound that are clashing on top of each other. So here we've got very definitive, this bass is playing, and then this one comes in, and then this bass plays, and then this one comes in, always in the gaps. So it just helps to not have things sort of stacked on top of each other. It really helps your ear listen to each individual part rather than having things sort of overlapping. It just creates a lot more space in the mix itself, and for your ear to catch on to what is actually happening in the song. And then I've got this dub call thing. Found that in Splice, and that really, really reminded me of Chasing Status. So I thought I had to get that in. And then we've just got some just basic effects going on. Just some rises and impacts throughout the song. This white noise, I tend to do quite a lot. It's really, really helps feel the impact of a drop. They did do it in Badadan, so that's why I did put it in there. But it's something I'd really recommend doing. It's easy to overdo it, but I'll play you with and without.
Good, my girl, that you a position style when you use my girl.
So that's without, and then with.
Good, my girl, that you a position style when you use my girl. Look where you.
It gives the impression of a CO2 cannon when you're at a show. You can have it any kind of length. You know, sometimes you could have it double the length of that.
Position style when you use my girl. Look.
Or you could have it literally half that.
Girl, that you a position style when you use.
It's kind of up to you really how long you put that in for. I really would recommend trying that for the impact of drops. It makes such a massive difference. And with these vocals, what I noticed in a lot of Chasing Status songs, and actually a lot of drum and bass songs, they almost have a pre-echo in the vocal, so it's a little stutter before the actual word comes in. So this line here, I've just copied this first word, so it just comes in before, so there's a little stutter. And that really helps the energy. I've done that a few times in here.
In every inning.
So rather than just it saying in
every inning.
You have just a couple beforehand.
In every inning.
And that helps the energy so much. It's really, really effective. I quite often take the volume of it down as well, so it's not at the same volume as the actual word. You can play around with that so much. It's something I hear in a lot of tunes, and it makes a really, really big difference. It just helps the vocal sound a little bit less straight and a little bit more sort of produced and computerized in a way, because you're chopping it up, so it doesn't sound natural, but it has that real, like a garagey feel to it.
In every inning. You make me so stiff up, why not in front of you? You make bad man papa, them gun of you. You make the Jesus what they make a take the gun. Right now me irons fuck, you want some from you. Oh, dream and a smoke baby. Say good my girl, that you a position style when you use my girl. Look where you do the way you so good, you make him spend a couple million. Keys to the villa man, keys to the bima man. Me so me stiff up, why not in front of you? You make bad man papa, then gun you. You make the Jesus what they make a take the gun. Right now the irons fuck, you want some from you.
And there we have it. Chasing Status, absolute legends. They are unreal producers. And that latest album was just unbelievable. So I had to get one of them in. I hope you guys like it. And I hope you have a good day. Or a good week. Goodbye. For now.